Wait until you hear this story. This poor child. So this person calls this story the Red Room. Nobody in their family dares to go into this room. It has been untouched for decades. It still remains the exact same since their great aunt died when she was 12 years old of cancer. Her name was Diane, and red was her favorite color. The room had red walls, red ceilings, and red floors, and a Raggedy Ann doll that sat on the dresser. That Raggedy Ann doll was Diane's favorite, and it's still the first thing that you notice when you walk into that room. So this person's great-grandparents are still alive, and they have family come over and visit every holiday. Nobody ever goes in Diane's room. Not because they're not allowed to, but because anytime anyone ever has, they feel this deep heaviness in their chest. Like such a heaviness that you can't breathe. They said they were only in there one time as a child, and as soon as they went in, they noped it right back out of there. And this is before they even knew about Diane. So the incident happens to their 6-year-old cousin, Jose. They were having one of their holiday get-togethers, and it was Jose's first time ever being there. So he was beep-bopping all throughout the house, checking out all the different colored rooms. And then he gets to the red room. He slowly creeps inside, and immediately something's wrong. All of a sudden, Jose starts screaming from the other room, and he comes flying out the door and into his mother's arms. He tells his mom the big kids from the red room were biting him and hitting him. He lifts his shirt up to show his mom, and sure enough, there are scratches and red marks and bruising starting to already form all over his back. So she soothes him, calms him down, and immediately goes to investigate the red room. When she gets inside and looks around, she doesn't find any kids in there. But what she does notice is that Raggedy Ann doll. As soon as she looked over at this thing, chills ran down her spine. Both of the doll's arms slowly reached up toward her as if asking for a hug. She screams, runs out of there, and slams the door shut behind her. This person says that they're not sure if their great-grandparents are just super oblivious to everything, or if they just like turning a blind eye to things that happen in the red room. But now that kids are literally being injured, they did pack up this doll and put it into storage, and they don't invite people to stay in the red room anymore. Getting physically assaulted by a spirit is on a whole other level. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm interested to know if anything like this has ever happened to you. And if you wouldn't mind giving me a follow and sharing me out, it gives me more exposure so that people send me more creepy story times that I will share with you.
You want a real spooky one that actually happened and nobody can explain it? This didn't happen in the Appalachian Mountains like my normal stories, but it did happen to 9 hikers, and what happened to them is still unexplained. Like, nobody can explain it. I want to know your thoughts on this because this is my Roman Empire. I think about this all the time. So in January 1959, these 9 experienced, not run-of-the-mill hikers, these very experienced Russian hikers are hiking the Ural Mountains. There were 3 different checkpoints along the way. They made it to the first checkpoint, and then they check in with like radio team or whatever to let them know that they're safe. But they never made it to the second checkpoint. So that's when they called out for search and rescue to go find them. This mountain was not like your just like average little hiking mountain. This was like a super snowy, I mean, there was known to be avalanches, things like that. We're talking Russia, okay? So search and rescue is deployed to go find them. They search for weeks, and what they find is absolutely insane. So the first 5 bodies of the hikers were found kind of all scattered in the snow. But what was really, really odd is they were all in different states of dress. Like, some of them were wearing no clothes at all. Some of them only had on pants. One had just like one shoe on and one shoe off. Then they also had these really weird unexplained injuries. One actually appeared to have bitten off part of his own knuckle. In their tents that they found, the tents had been cut open from the inside. Like something was in their tent and they were trying to get out. And then their clothes, because I said they were only in like partially clothed, their clothes were folded neatly, like back in the back sides of the tent. So at this point, they're still missing 4 hikers, right? Months go by, and as the snow starts to melt, they find the other 4. This is even crazier, y'all. One had a fractured neck, one had a fractured skull, one of them was missing both of her eyeballs, and another one had their tongue ripped out from the root. However, there were no external injuries. So there wasn't like big scratch marks or things like that. It was all internal. Another one was said to have their chest caved in with the force that would have been something like a car hitting them. But then 2 of the hikers were found to have radiation in their body. Radiation! People say this was an avalanche. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe it, because they would definitely have external injuries. And I'm sorry, but an avalanche does not rip out your tongue and your eyeballs. Oh, and I didn't tell you this. One of the bodies was found to have burns on him. What is going on? Some people say this was just hypothermia that would cause you to have this, like, it's a phenomenon that causes you to feel super hot and undress. But what explains the injuries? What explains the radiation? I'll give you my hot take. Something attacked them. I don't know what it was. It had to be something massive. Things just aren't adding up. I don't know. Tell me what you think about this case. Leave it in the comments. Have you ever heard of the Dyatlov Pass incident? Because, y'all, I just continue to spiral.
Let's read some scary Reddit stories. I need my emotional support squishmallow. I used to live in an old house, one built during the Civil War era. It was previously lit by gas. The light fixtures had the gas pipes in them but wired for electricity. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. and saw a ghostly figure which looked like an old woman dressed in 1800s clothes. She put her hand on my chest, then put a finger on her mouth, then floated through the bedroom wall into the house next door. The next night I was chatting with my neighbor and he asked if I believed in ghosts. He described that the night before he saw an old woman figure floating around in his backyard, and I described what I saw and we looked at each other like, whoa. That's creepy. When I was a kid, me and my mother were visiting her birth town and we were staying at her childhood home. My grandparents had already passed away at this point, so it was just the two of us there. In the evening, I was arguing with her about wanting to sleep next to her instead of sleeping alone, and my mother said no. I wasn't used to sleeping by myself at that time. Then she heard a loud banging sound, like someone hit a door really hard or something, and I even asked, what was that sound? After that, she got scared and let me sleep next to her. Afterwards, she told me that she felt like it was my granddad voicing his opinion about letting me sleep next to her that night. That's actually really sweet. I was on a boat in the middle of the ocean. The radar was good for quite distance. It went very far, miles and miles and miles. One night, there's us and a handful of other boats on the water, a few fishing vessels, and our radar catches something moving extremely fast going towards the other boats. Stay for a bit, pivot and go to the next boat, then pivot and come straight to us and do the same thing, then it turns and goes off radar. We thought it was a helicopter, but when it got to us, we saw nothing visually and heard nothing. No flashing lights typical of an aircraft and no sounds, just some radar ghost moving hundreds of miles an hour, stopping on a dime, pivoting and seemingly looking at all the boats in the middle of the ocean, then wandering off. Aliens, for sure. That's creepy. I do not like ocean stuff. Why would you be on a boat in the middle of the ocean, okay? Especially at night. I worked at a gas station when I was just about out of high school and was just opening the store one morning at around 5 a.m. Usually the manager of the store is there, but she had to go do something with her son, so she took off for about an hour, and during that time it was slow and this guy walked in, completely covered in blood from head to toe. He had some torn up clothes on and looked completely out of it, comes up to the counter and asks for some cigarettes. I kind of pause and just ask, you know you're bleeding a little bit, right? And he looks down, literally dripping blood and swaying back and forth, and says, I don't see it. He rummages in his pockets and I tell him I'm going to call him an ambulance, and he freaks the fuck out and starts screaming at me, throws over a candy display and just runs out of the store. My manager walked in maybe 10 minutes later and sees all the blood, and I had to explain it all. When I was a teenager, I was home alone. I lived with my dad and he was away often. My bed was next to the bedroom door, which opens inwards, and I used to leave the hallway stairs light on and my bedroom door half open for a bit of light. I was laid in bed one night about 10 p.m. with my room light off, just chilling before sleep, and you know how you get that thin line of light at the hinge edge of the door? Well, something about 3 feet tall moved past it and briefly blocked out the light as if it was coming in my room. I almost screamed. I laid there borderline panicking and not even daring to breathe, with the taste of adrenaline in my mouth, my skin crawling, and goosebumps all over. I eventually dared to move and turn my light on, then look outside my room and check the house. There was nothing there. That's really creepy. What are those, like little Mexican, like, gnomes, like duendes? Is that what they're called? I'll look it up and I'll put it right here. That's like the first thing that I thought of, and that is so creepy. I used to live in an apartment building that didn't allow you to have a washer or dryer, but had two of both machines in a room that you had to pay to use, of course. So this one time I'm moving my clothes from the washer to the dryer, and I hear this knocking coming from the wall in front of me where the machines were. 3 knocks, one right after the other, like someone at the door. I figure it's just the pipes of the machines, and I brush it off. Then I hear that knocking on the wall next to me, which would be connected to the hallway. I brush it off. Then there's that same knocking on the wall to the other side of me. Then there's knocking on every wall at the same time, just knocking and knocking and knocking, then silence. Then I heard the knocking on the door behind me. No, ma'am, I'd be moving.
Imagine you had a friend who could control duendes. Would you be scared? Would you continue to be their friend? Or would you ask them to have the duendes do something for you? What would I have the duendes do for me though? No, I don't want to fuck with that. So this girl has a friend, and one day they're hanging out, and out of nowhere her friend was like, oh, I have some kiddos. And she was like, kiddos? Like, what do you mean? Because she knew her friend did not have children. She didn't understand her very well, but when she's like, what do you mean you have kiddos? This girl brings out a little figurine. She said it looked like a little old man in a hood and just like colored clothing. She thought it was really weird, and that's when her friend was like, they're duendes. She explains that the figurines were just almost like their home where they come back into, and that if she brought these little figurines with her, the duendes could go anywhere with her as well. Her friend then tells her that this is the way that she could travel with the duendes. For example, she goes hiking, she goes into a forest, and by her bringing the figurines, she allows the duendes to also go into this forest, go into a hike with her. Her friend also tells her that anytime she goes out, she has to bring the duendes with her because she says the duendes get mad if she leaves them at home. She listens to her friend and she doesn't really judge her because she's like, well, everybody has their beliefs, you know, everybody does whatever they want, whatever. So time goes on, and you know, she still sees her friend. They always have conversations about the duendes, and her friend continues to tell her, well, the duendes are very like pranksters. Sometimes they take items from your home. So when she hears that, she's like, wait, I recently lost a ring, and this ring is very precious to me. And she tells her friend, well, I don't know if maybe you or maybe your duendes could tell me where this ring is at, because by this point she had been looking for that ring for a minute. And her friend is like, well, would you give me permission to come over to your house so that I can see if maybe, you know, there's something there. When her friend comes over to her house, like steps into the door, the threshold, she tells her, you know what? Back there, you have 4 duendes. And at this point, she's a little bit scared because she's like, what do you mean? And her friend is like, I can see them, I could feel them, I could sense them. So she's like, can I go back there and check? And she lets her go back there. And she hears where her friend is like, kiddos, are you guys back there? And she almost like she was talking to children. When she returns, she was like, yeah, there's 4 duendes back there and they're with your small dog. And she explains that she starts to think about her dog. She's like, oh my gosh, like some nights I hear my dog crying, and in my head I'm just thinking, oh, she wants to go out and play, but I'm not gonna let her out. Her friend tells her that the duendes are the ones that are messing with her little dog. Her friend then asks her, do you want the duendes to stay here with you? And she was like, fuck, I'm scared right now. Like, what do you mean for them to stay here? She's like, well, I can take them with me if you want. And she's like, yes, take the duendes with you. Take them with you. Like, please, go ahead. And when she said that, she explains that her friend was like, kiddos, can you come over here? She's not prepared to take care of you. So if you come with me, I can love you. I'll take care of you guys. You'll have a good life with me. I don't want you to get mad at her. It's not that she wants to kick you out, but she's not prepared on how to take care of you. Bitch, take them. Now here's the really fucking weird part, okay? She said that this entire time her husband was also there with her, listening to her friend talking to like nothing, because they're not seeing anything. But the fact that she knew that something had been messing with her dog, you know, they were both a little bit shocked. However, the moment that the lady's like, okay, come on, get into my purse, to the duendes, because she's about to take them home, she says that her and her husband hear 4 sounds really close to that purse. Like almost if you have grabbed a little rock and just put it into a purse, they heard that sound 4 times. Her husband's looking at her like, did you just hear that? Like, they're both looking at each other like, what the fuck? Like, we just heard, she said, duendes, get into the bag. They heard 4 little sounds into that bag. Obviously scared, obviously what the fuck, right? However, she's like, whoa, wait, what about my ring? She's She's like, this is why you guys are here. Where's my ring? And the friend's like, oh my gosh, yes, I completely forgot. Okay, she opens her bag. She's talking into the bag because again, the duendes are in there, and she tells them, okay guys, you have 5 minutes. You need to return the ring to her. You only have 5 minutes, so you better go and get that ring. Apparently duendes are out there getting the ring, right? 5 minutes pass. The friend is like, okay guys, you have to come back again. They hear those 4 sounds into that purse. She says that her friend leaves, and her husband like, what the F just happened? Like, they were shocked. They were like, well, I don't see the ring anywhere, so whatever. If this is even real, like, I guess at least she took the duendes with her. The following morning, she says that she's always the first one to wake up, and she was about to go downstairs to make a coffee. When she gets to the last step, she sees that ring that had been missing. This couldn't have happened this easily, because when she did lose that ring, she said the ring, I think, was given to her by her grandmother, so that ring meant a lot. She didn't want to lose that ring and not find it. So when it was lost, her and her mom, they had moved like the refrigerator, they moved sofas. They really wanted to find this ring, and it was never anywhere. So the fact that the following day she sees it in that front step was insane. She immediately grabs her phone, takes a picture of the ring on that step, and sends it to the friend, the one who like took her for duendes. And her friend responded like, I told you they had taken your ring. She starts explaining that for a very long time she always thought that duendes were bad beings, that she was always very terrified on the topic. But after this happened to her, because this is the very first thing that had ever happened to her that had to do with duendes, she also realized that they are also for good. Like, they can do some good things as well, which is crazy because I feel like we've all heard stories of them taking like keys and like random things, and there's some people who have just very respectfully asked them to bring them back, and then the following day or like in a few days they end up finding whatever had been lost. But what do you guys think? Would you ask your friend if she can control duendes to find something for you, or would you just like not want to mess with this at all?
Some kind of creature did this to the back of her truck, and to this day she says that she still won't drive alone. The story is absolutely terrifying. It comes from a girl that lives in eastern Kentucky. She wanted me to share her story with you. She's been asked that she remains anonymous because people have called her crazy for this, but I believe her story, so just let me know what you think in the comments. So to protect her identity, we will call her Sarah. She said she was about 22 years old at the time of this happening. She lived in Pikeville, Kentucky, and was on her way home late one night from a friend's house. Pikeville is located in the Appalachian Mountains, and some of these surrounding areas around Pikeville can be pretty spooky at night. Sarah said this particular road that she was on was so small through this like winding back road in the mountains that if another car was coming, you would almost have to pull over to the side of the road for the other car to pass. She said this particular night was really foggy and she was having a hard time seeing the road. So she said she was driving very slow and had the music down in her truck all the way because she needed to be able to concentrate. And then all of a sudden she heard this bang in like the truck bed. And she thought at first that she could have hit a pothole or something, and she had a cooler in the back of her truck and thought that maybe it like shifted and made the noise. But then she heard the truck rattle a second time. She checked her rearview mirror and saw nothing but darkness, so she just kept going. But then she heard scraping sounds coming from the truck bed. She's starting to get really terrified at this point that maybe an animal or something got in the back of her truck. And then all of a sudden she feels something like pull the truck backwards. So at this point she stops the truck and puts it in park. She looks in her rearview mirror and sees nothing again. But she says she can still feel something kind of moving and rattling in the truck. When she finally works up the courage to get out of the truck, she sees nothing in the truck bed, but she does see that denting in the truck that I showed you in the original photo. And then she says she hears the sound of like crunching leaves off the side of the road and barely makes out from the brake lights of her truck this weird figure. Sarah said this figure was only there for a couple of seconds until it disappeared into the woods, but she describes it as a very lanky human-like figure, but it was ghostly white and walking on all fours. She immediately gets back into her truck because she is so terrified, closes the door, and just speeds home as quick as she can. Again, to this day, Sarah says that she will not drive alone. She said she used to talk about this experience to a lot of people. Most people said she was crazy, but there was a few other people that she spoke to that said they have witnessed the same figure in the woods. Leave in the comments what you think this could have been, and let me know if you've ever experienced or seen anything like this before.
If a person ever happens to jump into the car and tell you that somebody's chasing them for their soul, You should believe them. Robert is an Uber driver that was working late one night. It was probably a little bit past midnight when he received a ride request of somebody waiting for him just at the edge of town. When he got to the location of the pickup, he saw a guy get into the back seat. The minute the guy got into the back seat, Robert could tell that there was something wrong with the guy. The guy was acting very erratic. He kept checking all of the back windows and like looking in the back, like rear, like almost as if someone was chasing him. At first, Robert tried to ignore it because he had been doing Uber for a while and was used to all different types of people like getting into his car, so he just assumed that eventually it would just quiet down. But as time went on, he noticed that the guy became more and more erratic, and at this point he was breathing really heavy, almost as if he was getting ready to have a panic attack. Finally, Robert decided to kind of turn around and ask the guy like, "Hey man, are you good?" The guy shook his head and said, "No, she's looking for me, and she won't stop until she takes my soul." Robert's at first a bit startled by this, but then 100% is convinced that the guy must be on something. He then tells the guy, "It's alright, man. No one's gonna get you. You're perfectly safe." And they continue to drive. Once they get to a red light, Robert stops. He notices that the guy gets even more frantic and starts to yell, pretty much telling Robert that he needs to go. But Robert is like, "It's a red light, like I can't go." He then tells Robert, "Look, like she's right over there." Robert happens to look up and sees her. It is a woman dressed in all black. Her face is all white out, and he can make out that her hands are literally like the color of this paper. He knows that what he's staring at is death, and he is terrified. Before he even has a chance to react, the guy completely loses it. He jumps out of the back seat and runs straight into oncoming traffic. He was hit head on, and the guy did not make it. So she essentially ended up getting what she wanted, which was his soul. After all that took place, Robert was of course completely shaken. The cops were called. It was like a whole thing, but he was never able to figure out why she was after him or what was really after him. But all he knows is that is literally a ride that he will never forget.
Tell you guys a story, paranormal activity, true story, about why you should not do Ouija boards, seances, and why you should never mess with things that are on the other side you don't know about. So this actually happened to me in high school, and ironically enough, I knew better than to mess with things because of paranormal activity my entire life. But in high school, especially during Halloween, when you're literally just young and you're not really thinking about anything else logically, your frontal lobe is not formed fully. So one Halloween season, I was in high school, I was with a group of friends, and they wanted to do something. We wanted to do like a spooky activity. We ended up going to Fear Farm, which is a thing, and like it's been in Arizona for a long time. I don't know if it's in other states, but it's like basically just a big, outdoor haunted house and attractions. We went there and ended up being so crowded that like we couldn't even get a parking spot because this is very close to Halloween. And so anyways, we ended up ditching Fear Farm, and a bunch of other factors went into it, but we just decided no go. We were trying to decide what we could do. And there was this really haunted house, like, the people kind of knew about, and it was really scary and abandoned. And haunted, when I say haunted, I don't really know the backstory. It just was a scary-looking house that people went and did, like, Ouija boards in, and it was abandoned. They wanted to do something like that. My friends, I remember, were like, let's go do something. It's like, oh, what are we so scared of, blah, blah, blah. Instantly, I'm like, no, I'm out. I'm going home. But I was also driving. There's a couple cars, like, a couple of us driving. I was driving a big group of my friends. So I was like, I'm just gonna, like, drop you guys off. Then, peer pressure, and I'm being called, oh, you're scared and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I am scared. Like, I don't want to really go into the house. Anyways, I end up losing the battle, right? So I drive them, follow the other car to this haunted house. No one's there, no other cars. It looks like it's pretty much abandoned. Like, no one's in there this specific night and time. When I say no one's in there, it's because there would be, like, homeless people sometimes that would be in the house, and then other teenagers like us, too, just trying to explore it. No one's there. So I remember they get out, and the plan was, I'm pretty sure, to do a Ouija board, but no one, like, had a Ouija board. And I remember, like, us just being on, like, our phones and our data. At the time, we still had controlled data. Like, you only were allowed 10 milligram or mg. I don't know the speeds. I know many roasted for that. Whatever it was, data that ran out on Verizon. We were all on like, our parents' phone plans when we were 16. All of us are out of data. Can't Google anything. We have barely any service anyway. And, like, my cat just jumped on my shoulder. Half of the group decided they wanted to go in and, like, explore. And then a couple of us, like, were staying back. So I stayed back, and then one of my guy friends stayed back, and then one of my girlfriends stayed back. And then I remember we were in, like, the car together, and, like, we should just go in, we should just try it. They end up being brave and going into the house. So they leave me outside this abandoned house. On top of all this, I feel like I'm all by myself. My friends aren't there for me. And it's pitch black. Because remember, this house is abandoned, so there's no electricity. There's no street lights. Pitch black outside this house. And I just get this real weird feeling, right? And I'm like, fuck, I wish I want to just go home. And I pull up my phone because I was going to text them, like, I'm just going to go home. My kids are going to all have to fit in the other car. Like, I don't feel safe. Because it wasn't even paranormal at this point. Like, we were in an area of town where, like, we shouldn't be that young alone. You know what I mean? When I say area of town, it's not like it was a horrible area of town. But we are young kids. And this is, like, a spot where people go. They know it's an abandoned spot. Probably not the safest area to be. So I go to, like, text my friends, and my, like, service is not sending. And keep in mind, important side note, my passenger door the whole time to my car is open. Because, like, my guy friend who was sitting in the front got out of that side, and he just left the door open. And I thought they were going to come right back. So I hadn't even, like, thought to close the door or anything. So I remember I'm, like, trying to get service to send this text. It won't go through as, like, an iMessage. So I was trying to send it through. And I hear, like, someone plop down, like, next to me in the car, and then the door shut. And I turn around, and I was like, thank God. I hate this story. It honestly scares me so bad. No one was in my car, y'all. Nobody was in my car. I'm literally getting red. Do you see that, like, thinking about the PTSD I have from that moment of fear? I thought I was gonna die. Someone got in my car, though. Like, you could literally hear a body, like, you know when you sit down in a chair? Like, you sit in a car. You could hear someone sit down, and my door shut. And I looked over quick enough to where, like, I would have seen if my friends were messing with me. Like, I would have seen, no one wouldn't have possibly been able to pull a prank like that on me, and no one else around, and, like, hit it. No one's there. And so I'm like, not even wanting to look in the back seat, even though I turned right around, look in the back seat, nobody's there. Nobody's in my vehicle anywhere. And I remember I'm freaking out. Meanwhile, I hear my friends, like, screaming inside. I go to turn my car back on because I turned it off. And when my lights turn on, I see a shadow in front of my lights, and then it just disappears. I remember trying to tell my friends about this, and they were, friends, so mean to me, calling me crazy, telling, oh, you're just trying to get attention. When I tell you guys, that was one of the scariest moments of my life. Like, it was so real, and no one believes me. And after that, obviously different groups of friends were still going to check out that house. I didn't even want to drive past it. Hearing, like, the sound again in my head, thinking about this, of the person sitting down, like, something got in my car, but no one was in my car. Don't mess with abandoned spots. Don't mess with spots that have known bad energy. And don't mess with things on the other side this Halloween. That's all I have to say to y'all. Stay safe. Bye.
Scary rest home stories. If you've ever worked in a rest home, then you know just how creepy those places are. In 2008, I began working as a cleaner in a rest home, and this place was really old. It was once a mental institution before it was a rest home. Nobody really prepared me for some of the scary situations I'd be dealing with. So I met this older woman named Evelyn, and every day I'd go into her room and start cleaning, talking. She'd share her life story, I'd share mine, and we just clicked so fast. I cleaned Evelyn's room on day shift for over a year and never had any problems. But it was when I was put on night shift that all hell broke loose. So most of the time, if we got our work done early enough, we could clock out and go home. But on some nights, I would just stay at the rest home and hang out with the patients. I didn't have a man at home. I didn't have nothing, so I was just cool hanging out with them. I go into Evelyn's room. I close the curtains. I'm trying to talk to her, but she's not really saying nothing to me. Typically, she's talking my head off, but right now, she's just cold like a stone. She turns to me and says, so tell me, when did you start fucking my husband? I said, Miss Evelyn, calm down, honey. I don't know your husband. I just work here. She said, you damn liar. You know who Charles is. You're my best friend, and I've been behind my back for years. This woman gets on her hands and knees and starts crawling towards me, like on the floor. I'm still standing up, and I run backwards out the door. So a nurse runs up and locks the door and says, look, Evelyn has sundown syndrome.
After 7 o'clock, she thinks everybody wants her husband, but you have to understand it's not her fault. She's sick.
They done gave this woman Xanax, Trazodone, Seroquel, like she should be knocked out, but she's not. For the next 3 hours, Evelyn sits on the edge of her bed and has her food tray in her mouth going, biting down on it. I walk past her door and I don't see her sitting on the bed, so I walk up closer to the window to check on her, and then she pops up at the window and her pupils are huge. Makes direct eye contact with me and says, he's gonna eat your heart. I jumped back. I damn near fell on the floor because she scared the crap out of me. That same nurse said, look, you'll be fine. Just give it a couple of days and you'll be used to it. I said, honey, I don't know if I can get used to this. She's scaring the hell out of me. The next morning before I'm going home, I'm about to clock out when I walk by Evelyn's door and she says, hey, Alicia, how are you doing this morning? Like, she's totally different. And that was when I started doing some research on sundown syndrome and I learned a lot.
Another patient was a 90-something-year-old man named Mr. Grady, and he stayed in room 401. I would go sit and talk with Mr. Grady for hours sometimes, and he would tell me all about this facility, the town, and his family. He said that his grandma was once a patient back when it was an institution after she murdered her 3 children, his dad's siblings, 2 of his aunts, and an uncle. The only reason his dad survived this attack was because he was the oldest child and was able to flee the home before she got to him.
Tells me, you know, they always say you'll see certain relatives before you die. And I'm like, I know, I've heard that before. Like, my grandma called out to her son when she was dying. He's like, yeah, I haven't seen no one yet, though. And then he starts laughing.
So one day, Mr. Grady freaks out and says there are demons watching him from outside of his window. There's a woman in a purple dress with yellow eyes standing at the foot of his bed trying to get him. So staff tells him it's okay, calm down, you're having night terrors. It's a side effect of your medication, but he's not having it because he can see her. Well, it starts storming outside as if things weren't bad enough, and then he jumps up and says he now knows who this woman is and that it's his grandmother, demon, and she's been sent there to drag him to hell with her. He yells out, call in a priest, my soul has to be saved or she will take me, and he starts crying. They refused him, sedated him, and just put him back into bed like that and left him alone and told us not to go back in there. Then they crawled my ass for asking the priest to come in to see him, saying that I was feeding into his delusions, but I said we don't know what's real and maybe that would calm him down. I was so mad that I threatened to quit because the priest was already in the chapel, so what would it have hurt to let him go see Mr. Grady? Nothing.
The next morning, the nurses find him dead in his bed. So another patient was Miss Celeste. She was 92. She was real classy. Every morning she got up and did her hair and makeup, squirted perfume on, got all dressed up. Even though she wasn't going anywhere, she had to look her best. She was going to wear her Charlie perfume all day, every day. Hell, you could smell it all the way down the hallway.
Every other night, we sit on her bed and she shows me all her family pictures, her jewelry, and just tells me all about her life. One night, Miss Celeste is standing in the hall and she says before I leave work to come by her room because she has something she wants to give to me. So I go by her room, we sit down and talk, and she gives me this old necklace. I don't know what it is or what it means, but I've kept it ever since. If anyone knows what this is, let me know in the comments. So she lays this pretty dress out on the bed and says, will you brush my hair one last time? I said, what do you mean one last time? I'll see you tomorrow, Miss Celeste. She said, no, you won't. This will be the last time we talk, honey. And she was right. So she hugs me real tight and says that she enjoyed my company and hopes I have a good day. And I clock out and leave, and when I come in the next day, they tell me she passed right after I left. Her death was one that really got to me because we had gotten so close. We spoke every day. She was so nice, polite, and kind to me, just very sweet. The thing about Celeste was she just wanted someone to talk to. She just wanted a friend. She was so lonely. And what's crazy, I could still smell her Charlie perfume throughout the facility.
If y'all want to hear more rest home stories, let me know because I've got a million. Listen, these are my own personal experiences. If I do read someone else's story, I will credit them, tag them, or put on the screen, sent in by blank. I don't steal stories.